Rob Harris, the AP's global sports correspondent. Rob, thanks so much for joining us from outside Wembley Stadium, in fact, where you were covering the England-Andorra match earlier. First up, what is the very latest on this developing situation out of Sao Paulo tonight?
Well, as it stands now, the game has been suspended tonight. It looks like it's been postponed. Whether or not it's ever played and completed, well, that's another matter. Obviously, the responsibility does fall on the Argentine players, and ultimately, just what will the match delegate say and the referee in their report? As we understand it, the Argentina players had already left their hotel in Brazil to head to the stadium when the health officials locally were already on their way to try to speak to the Argentine players. What did they say on those quarantine forms? That will be crucial. Did they fully declare they'd been in England? And I think we've rarely ever seen such scenes like it. Health officials going into a stadium, going onto the pitch, stopping a game to confront players for breaching national quarantine laws, national visa laws, the whole reasons for their entering of the country. And obviously in the assessment, it will be worked out. What did the match delegates know? Because they sign off the team sheets. Did they know about this? Did they know there was any questions over the eligibility of these Argentine players? Or was it actually the Argentina side that didn't inform the match delegate properly that there were issues? Because ultimately, it's the latest saga in what has already been an unfolding mess over player release for World Cup qualifiers. These players shouldn't have even been in South America if the Premier League had had their way, because they didn't want any players to go to South America. And these players are from Tottenham and Aston Villa, because when they return here to England, they have to quarantine in a hotel for 14 days. What we'd focus less on are the quarantine requirements in South America. And Brazil has regulations that say anyone who's been through the UK in the previous 14 days, they've got to quarantine on arrival there. And that seems to be the heart of this issue, just what was said and what was declared.
Absolutely, they were surreal, extraordinary scenes, weren't there? Those images that are going and reverberating around the world, Rob, even at this hour. One question doing the rounds for me, I want to get your take on this. Why would they wait, though, till the match was underway just a few minutes in before taking the action that they then did, going out there onto the field of play?
Yeah, what a moment of drama. We perhaps used to it in times in football, but this certainly walking onto the pitch to halt it. Were they stuck in traffic, as was suggested? Did they try to act before the game started? Did they try to go to the Argentina team hotel to speak to the players there first? Certainly, that will all be something to look at. And they timed their moment. Ultimately, of course, as the Brazilians would see it, it's all about protecting public health. And if they believe they had to act because individuals who'd entered the country and hadn't followed the necessary regulations, well, they weren't going to leave it a minute longer. Obviously, you've got a stadium with fans in it and a Brazil side not quite knowing what to do. At some point, the players returned onto the pitch to try to entertain the crowd. And, ultimately, the health officials will obviously have to give their full account, I would assume, to the FIFA side. Obviously, it is FIFA with jurisdiction for this game because it's a World Cup qualifier. It's likely to have been common ball officials ultimately handling things like the match delegates' responsibility.
All right, Rob Harris there. Thank you so much for joining us from London, the very latest. We do appreciate it there. From outside of Wembley Stadium, thank you so much.